Okay, fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the information session for the UK Youth Parliament elections in 2024. These will be happening all across Peterborough in February next year, and you are here today because you're interested in potentially registering as a candidate to become one of Peterborough's next youth MPs. So you should have on your screen a deck of slides. We're going to go through these and then we'll have a Q&A section at the end. Just to introduce myself, my name's Maria. I'm a youth voice worker at Peterborough City Council, and I'm the officer who supports the running of these elections. And then once the youth MP is elected, I'll be supporting those individuals through that role. So without further ado, let's get into it. So, bear with me. Okay, so what we're going to be running through this afternoon is we'll be talking a bit about what the UK Youth Parliament is, what members of Youth Parliament do, what their role involves, and then what it means to be an MYP. And then we'll be talking about what specifically that means for Peterborough. So we'll be joined by Eva Woods, who's the current youth MP for Peterborough, and she'll be kind of going into what she's done during her role. She'll be talking about the campaigns she's been involved in, and we'll also be discussing what the election timeline is, what the role specifically involves, what your next year could look like if you were selected as a youth MP, and then code of conduct for how you are expected to behave while you're a candidate, if you wish to put yourself forward for that after this session. So, what is the UK Youth Parliament? It's a youth organisation based across the whole of the United Kingdom, and it consists of young people who are 11 to 18 who have been democratically elected by other young people in their constituency, in their local areas, to represent them on their behalf. We have youth MPs all across the UK, including the 4 nations, and it depends on the youth population in each area to determine how many youth MPs we have. So in the past, we've always had 1 youth MP for Peterborough, but we've since had an increase in the youth population in Peterborough. So we're now going to have 2 positions available in the next elections. So we'll be having 2 youth MPs who will be selected in that process. So who can stand? Anyone can stand as long as you're 11 to 18. So as soon as you turn 19, even if you were selected to be a youth MP, if you turn 19, then you must stand down on your 19th birthday. And then in that situation, we'd ensure that we elect a replacement, maybe a deputy youth MP can take your place, or we'll elect democratically from within the youth council. But ideally, the person elected should be able to maintain their full 2-year term of office for those 2 years. We'll be electing, like I said, in February up until 2026, so February 2024 to 2026. So in terms of criteria, you must live, work or volunteer for a minimum of 14 hours, or be in education in Peterborough if you wish to stand for election. Now, what we mean by Peterborough are the boundaries of the Peterborough local authority. So Peterborough City Council has an area that it covers, and we follow that same kind of boundary line. So as long as you live within that, if you don't live, then either you work or volunteer in Peterborough for a minimum of 14 hours a week, or you study in Peterborough. If that applies to you, then you can stand for election. If it doesn't, then you might consider standing in another area that you do fall within, but you can't stand in more than 1 election at the same time. So if you are standing in a different constituency, you won't be able to also stand in Peterborough, even if you do meet this criteria. For some reason, my mouse pad is going really fast. Okay. So what does a role of a member of Youth Parliament involve? So you'll be doing 3 things. Firstly, your job will be to engage in decision making. So you will actively support youth voice in your constituency and engage with decision makers across the whole area. So that could be your MP, that could be councillors, it could be senior decision makers, it could be various organisations that exist in Peterborough. You'll also meet with other youth groups, the youth council, other youth forums in your area, and so work alongside other young people to represent the voice of young people. You'll be participating in UK Youth Parliament meetings, events, activities, and consultations. And then you'll also be engaging in their local, national, and regional campaigns. You can decide your own campaigns locally, but you'll be working with the other youth MPs to determine what the national campaign is for UK Youth Parliament. Secondly, your job will be to promote the work of the UK Youth Parliament. So you'll be actively kind of sharing that, whether that be on your socials, whether that you'll be writing articles, or however, that would work for you in your role. It's different for each youth MP. It depends on what their strengths are. And then you'll also be reporting what you're doing locally back to UK Youth Parliament to talk about what you've been up to in Peterborough. You'll also be communicating quite frequently with the media. You'll be supported by the British Youth Council. That's what BYC stands for, and they're the organisation who support the UK Youth Parliament nationally. And you'll be given training on how to do this. But for example, you'd be expected to maybe attend a radio interview or speak with the local press, or maybe take part in some regional TV broadcast. So you'll be kind of using whatever mechanisms you have to promote the positive work that you're doing locally, regionally, and nationally. Finally, you'll be representing other young people. This is kind of the core of what you're doing. You're there to be a mouthpiece, a voice for other young people who've elected you on their behalf. So you'll be speaking on their behalf. You'll be talking about the issues that are important to them. You'll be using your experience as a young person, but you'll also be kind of sharing back and feeding back to decision makers the experiences of other young people who you represent. You'll also be encouraging and supporting other young people to actively engage in activities that the UK Youth Parliament is promoting. You'll be kind of allowing and supporting other young people to talk, to raise their concerns and talk about their issues and build their skill sets as well. You'll be taking the views of your constituents to the UK Youth Parliament sittings. These are held annually at the House of Commons, and the UK Youth Parliament are the only people apart from MPs who are allowed in the House of Commons, because every year you get to have your sitting, so you debate in the House of Commons as a youth MP. That's one of the special aspects of this role. And you also take part in votes on the national policy and the campaign priorities of the UK Youth Parliament every year. Now, this does sound like a lot, so there is a bit of a time commitment involved in this. Your term of office, if you were selected, would be for 2 years, and it has been kind of estimated that the youth MP is expected to spend an average of 1 to 5 hours per week on UK Youth Parliament activities. This is something that is really important to consider when you're thinking about whether you'd like to stand for election or not. It's a really serious commitment, and if you take it seriously, then you'll be creating a lot of positive impact for young people in Peterborough, but that also does involve prioritising it. And if you consider this alongside your other commitments and you think you perhaps won't be able to dedicate as much time to this as perhaps somebody else, then that might be something that it would be worth kind of thinking over before you decide to register as a candidate. It is between 1 and 5 hours a week, and that's probably quite consistent with what a lot of youth MPs say. And when Eva joins us, she'll talk more about what she does in her role, and that will kind of help clarify how that time is spent. Now, what do you get out of this? There's a lot of skill development opportunities that come with being a youth MP. It's different from one person to the next, but generally communication skills, public speaking skills, organisation, negotiation, debating, teamwork, and various leadership skills. So there will be a lot out of the role for you personally if you were to become a youth MP, but obviously that does take a lot of commitment on your end, and it depends how much you put in. Time to move the slide. This keeps happening. Bear with me. Okay, so What does the timeline look like? If you were to decide to register as a candidate, then you would need to complete a registration form. At the moment, most of you are here because you've completed an expression of interest form because you're considering standing as a candidate. After you've attended the online information session and you know more about the role, you'll feel more informed as to decide whether this is something you'd like to do. The candidate registration form will be sent out to everybody tomorrow morning. So those of you who are here this evening, you will receive it in your inbox as long as you've submitted the expression of interest. Whoever submits the expression of interest will receive the registration form. So please do fill that in if you haven't yet and you're watching this online. The registration deadline is Friday, the 5th of January. So you have over the Christmas period to consider whether this is something you'd like to do. Everybody who submits an expression of interest form will also be emailed a candidate information pack, which will have a summary of this information session in it. So you'll have the key information on a document for you to consider. Now, once you've completed your candidate registration form, you'll be invited to 2 training sessions. The first will be on Wednesday, the 10th of January, on the evening, so between 5 and 6:30 p.m. And then the second one will be the following week on the Monday, the 15th, also in the evening. During these 2 training sessions, the candidates will be supported to create their manifestos. These will be a very short kind of summary of the promises you're making to the young people of Peterborough about what you will do if you were selected as the youth MP and why they should vote for you. So there'll be support and training to create that. After these 2 training sessions, this will culminate in a video of yourself. So each candidate will be filmed talking about their manifesto points, and their written manifesto will also be published. And these 2 things will be published on Monday, the 22nd of January. That will be sent to all of the schools who are registered as polling stations, and also to the candidates to support with the candidates campaigning. So from Monday, the 22nd of January up until the voting, which will take place between the 22nd of February to the 29th of February, that will be the campaign period. So the candidates will be able to campaign as much as possible within guidelines, which we'll talk about shortly. And then the elections will take place over a week between the 22nd of February and the 29th. At various polling stations that will be registering across Peterborough. So far we have quite a few schools already signed up as polling stations. And if it's something that you'd like to inquire with myself about whether your school is signed up or not, then please get in touch. My email address will be towards the end of this presentation. So after the 29th of February, we'll have a couple days of counting the votes. And then on Wednesday, the 6th of March, the following week, in the evening, we'll have the results announcement event. So on that evening, we'll have invited the press along, all of the candidates and various invited guests such as the MPs and local councillors and decision makers to kind of announce who the 2 new youth MPs are. So from the 6th of March onwards will be the beginning of the 2 youth MPs term. So that's the election timeline. Now I'm going to go on to what, if you were selected as a youth MP, what your year of events and activities could look like. So between the 6th of March and the 28th of March, you'll be supported by myself to have a local induction into your role. So this is at this point, you won't have any involvement with the British Youth Council. That will begin in April. So after the 28th of March, that's when I will notify British Youth Council that we've selected our 2 new youth MPs, and then they will do their onboarding process with you from the end of March to early April. You have an online induction session with the British Youth Council where they invite you over Teams or Zoom to get to know all of the other new youth MPs, and they will kind of induct you via some training into your role. Between April and September, the youth MPs will be supported to conduct focus groups in their local area on the Make Your Mark ballot. So the Make Your Mark ballot happens at the same time as the youth MP elections. So I talked about the polling stations that young people will be voting at in February. On one side of the ballot paper, they'll be able to vote for their youth MP, And on the other side of their ballot paper, they will be voting on issues that they think affect young people in Peterborough. So there'll be a list of 10 issues, and they'll vote on the ones that they think are the top issues for young people in Peterborough. So we'll also have findings on what the young people of Peterborough feel are the top issues for them. The Make Your Mark ballot findings also get sent to the British Youth Council for them to be able to share with us what the national top issue for young people is. So what will happen between April and September is, given that you'll know what the top issue for Peterborough is and what the top issue nationally is, you'll be supported by the British Youth Council to conduct focus groups with young people on those issues to find out more about what young people mean when they talk about this specific issue and what they feel are the challenges and how we can kind of improve the situation around that particular issue. From the 25th of June, there will be a day event called the Youth Con. At the Youth Con, you get invited to a public speaking training session with various youth groups across the region, and you learn different skills. So it could be, for example, public speaking, it could be campaigning, it could be various things that facilitators come in and train you on, but you also take part in workshops to meet other young people and find out what campaigns they are taking part in. You can attend these alongside the Youth Council of Peterborough because they also attend this. So it won't just be where youth MPs are, but you also get to meet the local young people from Peterborough there. In July, we hold the annual conference. This is just for youth MPs. It's an annual event where the youth MPs get together and over the course of one weekend, they create their manifesto. So you'll be debating on issues that you feel are important. And as a whole UK Youth Parliament, you will be creating your manifesto on the top issues that you feel affect young people. And from this manifesto, you will then select your top campaign that you will then work on throughout the next of the year, because it's a 2-year term. So the first year is kind of focused on working out what that top issue is, and the second year you work on campaigning it. So in October, there will be another Youth Con, and this will be to prepare you for the annual House of Commons sitting. You'll also be meeting with various decision makers and taking part in skills training workshops. And then in November, there will be the annual House of Commons sitting, like I mentioned. The date is to be confirmed, but from that manifesto that was created in July, it will be kind of shortened down to the top 5 topics that are the key issues from that manifesto, and then the youth parliament in the House of Commons debates on those 5 topics. And then the following year there'll be another youth con, and then throughout that year you'll be kind of having voted on the top issue from the House of Commons annual sitting. You'll be kind of campaigning and working on that top issue in the second year of your term of office. So that's what the first year looks like as a youth MP. I'll just check now. I'm not sure if Eva has arrived. If she is, then we'll be able to invite her to speak about her experiences.
Yes, I'm here. I'm just switching on my camera.
Fantastic. Hiya. I'll hand over to you now. Thank you, Eva.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, really refreshing to hear what the start works like. It's different for everybody. Those sort of like an overview of what the first couple of months and the induction timeline looks like, but really your role as a youth MP is whatever you make of it, and that's what I'm excited to share a bit more about with you today. So I'm sure Mari has introduced me, but my name's Eva. I've been Peterborough's youth MP since February 2022, hurtling quickly towards the end of my term. I'm really excited to see whoever steps in next. In terms of what it means to be a member of Youth Parliament, I think for me, the biggest part of it is being like a single focal point who's nice and visible and has a strong platform in the city to get involved in all kinds of youth consultations. So whenever somebody in the city is making an important decision, whether that be in the council or in another key organisation like the NHS or businesses or anything like that, If you're visible as a youth MP and people know who you are, they'll come to you to ask your opinion on that decision that's being made, or you can push yourself to be let into that room and let into that conversation if you're keeping a close eye on what's going on locally. And because you've been elected and because you're quite a visible person, you can push into spaces where youth voice is normally kept out. And the most important role of a member of youth parliament is to try and hold those relationships at quite a high level with decision makers and make sure that you're nice and plugged in with young people on the ground, with the people in your communities and in youth groups in the city, so that you're able to represent their views accurately when you're having those important conversations, and also push for young people to be included in as much as possible, so that you don't become a gatekeeper as a youth MP and you become a network for people who don't normally engage with youth voice to get through to youth voice. But obviously that's not really practical, that's quite theoretical. So what it looks like in real life, in terms of the commitment, 1 to 5 hours a week is pretty accurate. And like I said, it's what you make of it. If you are in an exam season and you don't have much time on your hands, or if for whatever other reason you need to take a step back, communicate that to the other people you're working with, but you are in charge of your own diary and you get a lot of skills from that on the way, being able to manage your other commitments with lots of other important things. I'll tell you now, most of my life wasn't the big glamorous campaigns and events, even though that's the exciting part and that's the part you'll remember. It was lots of emails and meetings, because the most important part is the relationships you have, and being able to have a variety of people in your network who know who you are and you know what they do. So when you're facing an issue or you have a campaign you want to work on, you have a big directory of people you can call on and work in a team with. I'll give an example. I'm doing a piece at the moment which is around involving businesses, and I've had to spend a lot of time over the past couple of months just networking with different people in the business community, because they weren't relationships I'd had before. I didn't know who to call on. Now I do, but it's taken some time and energy. And my biggest piece of advice would be, don't worry if you're attending a meeting and you don't know exactly what you're going to get out of it. Always be prepared. But if you've done any campaigning before, you'll probably spend lots of time prepping for meetings and trying to make sure you've got really concrete asks when you go in. If you're in youth parliament, that won't always be the case. Of course, if you need to achieve something from that conversation, have it planned. But it's worth investing the time in building your network, and that can be time consuming, but it's all on your schedule. If you don't have time to meet someone that week, offer your availabilities for the next one. It will make you feel very important, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Events are important because they're an opportunity for you to do a lot of that networking work very quickly. If you attend an event, you will make the amount of connections in 20 minutes that would take you months to do if you were just pinging out emails and meeting people over Teams in your own time, because you'll hopefully get an email address and a Teams account, so you can manage all of that professionally and separately from any other communications you might be doing. But the thing about events is sometimes you need to travel for them, sometimes you need to attend in the evening or in your own time, but Maria will give a bit more information on how we can support you with that. So just to summarize, it can take up your time, but it's all very valuable. It makes your life easier the more time you invest in meeting people and building up your networks, and it's on your own terms. Keep in communication with your school, keep in communication with the people who are there to support you, and you can manage it quite easily. In terms of campaigns, that's really your springboard into the role, because I've talked a lot about kind of the overarching, what the point of being a youth MP is and what you're trying to achieve. But you break that down to specific campaigns, which you'll identify in your manifesto when you do your video. So you'll have a couple of things that you pledge to the people who elect you that you're going to do. It's very important to invest some energy in those and trying to make those things happen. And then you'll probably have other campaigns that come across over time, because as soon as you step into the role, people will want to talk to you, people will share issues with you. You may find out about problems that you didn't know existed, and now you feel it's your duty to work on. So I've got some campaigns now which I wasn't working on when I came into the role, but that's natural. And campaigns are a really exciting piece because you learn a lot along the way and they evolve and change over time. I've got some pieces now where I said I would try and achieve one thing, and then I realized that I wanted to change my plans because it would have a lot more impact if I tried to do this thing. And again, your networks are very key there, because if you're trying to do a campaign, it's good to know what other work's going on that's related, and you need to know who has the power to change that thing you want to change. So that's why campaigns and very concrete things that you pledge to be able to do, that's how that fits in with some of that softer making relationship side of things. So you'll have your local priorities, which is what you pledge to do in your manifesto. And then you'll also have national things to do, which is where the British Youth Council and the National House of Commons annual conference, all of that fits. So make your mark, this ballot that's on the other side of the election, the issue-based one, will over time turn into a national campaign that the whole of UK Youth Parliament works on. And that's really exciting, because that's when you get your chance to work in the House of Commons, you get your chance to work quite closely with your MPs. And this year it was all around food for learning and access to free school meals, and that had its origins all the way back in Make Your Mark, which is the cool part, because then you can be campaigning for something which it's difficult to get people on board with, like free school meals. There are lots of people who will shoot those arguments down. And then you can trace back over a number of years how lots of research has been done to prove this is super important to young people. So the national campaigns are great because you get to work on something with quite a lot of force behind it and meet some brilliant people on the way. I'll stick around in case anyone's got any questions about what a youth MP's life looks like and how everything links up, but I'll pass back to Maria now to talk a bit about the support that's there for you.
Thanks, Eva. Yeah, so like Eva said, there's a lot of potentially a lot of events that you'll be attending, a lot of meetings that you'll be taking part in. A lot of it might be online, and that's fine, but where you need to travel and attend in person, or where you might not feel comfortable going alone, that's where I come in to support you in those spaces. So that's where Peterborough City Council comes in to support you financially as well. So the bottom line is that you should never be out of pocket because of your role and your commitments as a youth MP. So we have a policy that covers that, where if the youth MP is taking part in a certain number of events or a certain amount of hours throughout a week, then we'll support them to travel. Financially, maybe that's through like a bus pass, things like that, or where that's not possible, then arranging taxis for you so you are able to get where you need to be to conduct anything that you need to do in terms of your role. Now, in terms of consents, this is the bit where you also find out that as part of your role as a youth MP, if you aren't already a member of the Peterborough Youth Council when you are elected as a youth MP for Peterborough, then you get automatic membership to the Peterborough Youth Council as well. So when you're thinking about your hours and the amount of commitment that you need to give, then do also consider that the Peterborough Youth Council meets twice a month, and their meetings are an hour and a half long. So that will be 3 hours a month minimum that you'll have to kind of give to the Peterborough Youth Council. And if you're taking part in any extracurriculars or any events or any campaign work that the Youth Council is doing, then that will be additional to your role as a youth MP. So in terms of consents, as part of your membership to the Peterborough Youth Council, you'll complete some membership forms and consent forms. And if you're under 16, then your parents have to give consent as well. And then likewise for your role as a UK Youth Parliament member, you'll also sign some consent forms with the British Youth Council. So those two consents should cover most of what you do as a Peterborough Youth Parliament member. However, if there's anything that you want to commit to beyond that, for example, working with certain organisations or taking part in any extra opportunities, then we'll support you to make sure that your parents are aware, and we're supporting you properly as Peterborough City Council to make sure that's done safely. Okay, so now let's talk about how you must conduct yourself while you are standing as a candidate over the next election period. So we have a list of rules that all candidates must follow. So in terms of general rules, you have to follow this code of conduct, and anyone who supports you in your campaigning must also adhere to these rules. So if anyone breaks these rules, whether it's the candidate themselves or anyone supporting their campaign, like a friend or a family member, and we come to find out that any of these guidelines have been broken, then we will kind of look into a disciplinary, and you might be asked to remove your candidacy, and we'll take that decision on your behalf. So it's really important that you follow these rules, so we make sure that the campaigning is done well and it's done ethically. The UK Youth Parliament is not a party political organisation because it has a charity status, so we don't condone any party political campaigning. So the youth MP role is also a non-party political role. As an individual, you are allowed your own political views. However, when standing as a candidate for UK Youth Parliament, or if you are elected as a youth MP, then you must maintain neutrality about party politics. So you can discuss things on an issue level, but not from a party political perspectives. These rules apply when you're campaigning verbally or written, so also considering any online material that you produce while you're campaigning. Make sure that you don't do anything that other candidates won't have the same opportunity to do. So this kind of specifically refers to spending money on your campaign or using your contacts to produce an outcome that other candidates won't have the opportunity to do. If you do take yourself forward to be a candidate, then you will be given some campaign resources, some material that will be created, and will have some online versions sent to you, such as posters and booklets, etc. But we'll also give you a few copies of posters of different sizes, so you can put them up in various spaces that you are allowed to. If you choose to kind of push that further and you want to campaign in other areas, then you must not spend any extra money on those resources and materials. So you're allowed to post online, you're allowed to campaign in your school, but if you are then going to use your campaigning material to produce things that cost money, then that would be against the rules, because we want to make sure that it's fair for everybody. And if some people can afford to do something to promote their campaign and others can't, then it's not really an equal race, and that's something that we ask you not to do. If you're not sure about anything, because this is quite vague and it can look different for different people, then just ask, because it's better you clarify with me and get that checked, rather than you go ahead and think that something's allowed and then in the end we realize that it's against the rules. In terms of your behavior, you are not allowed to intimidate or harass anyone or any other candidates. You can canvass the support of other young people, but you must do this respectfully, and if they ask you to leave them alone, then please do so. If you want to make like a speech in your class or assembly, that's fine, but you need permission from the school and from the teachers. They are allowed to say no, and you must then be creative around the other ways that you choose to campaign. In terms of your election literature, you must only put your election posters and candidate posters on existing notice boards. So don't cover up anything that already is there or take down another candidate's literature. If you put your poster in places that aren't allowed, they will be taken down. So that's just something for you to be aware of. And please use your common sense. So don't like put it up in places that it's not allowed. Don't fly post indiscriminately. Just be considerate on how you're campaigning and be clever about it. Respect for others. Make sure you treat other candidates how you wish to be treated. Don't make it personal. Even if you know another candidate, and we want to make sure that this is you remain a good etiquette. So don't play dirty. Don't be offensive towards anyone else. And because this is a British Youth Council organisation, the UK Youth Parliament, you must follow the equal opportunity statement of the British Youth Council. So that's there for you to read, and it'll also be in the candidate handbook. So like I said, if any of these rules are broken, then a candidate does risk being disqualified from the election, and then this will be the decision of the returning officer at Peterborough City Council. So please do read these rules carefully. Now, if any of the candidates wish to make a formal complaint about your experience, then you can make these via myself, and then I will discuss it with the returning officer at Peterborough City Council. That person will make the decision, and then it will be a final decision from them. Please consider carefully before making a complaint, and only do so if you feel it's absolutely necessary. And if you're not sure about anything, please discuss it with me. As Peterborough City Council, we take it really seriously that we ensure that it's a fair race for everybody, and we don't take any unacceptable behaviour or any bad etiquette from any of our candidates, and we expect that you respect that. Now, if you do wish to make any complaints during the election process, then make sure you do it before the close of voting, so then we can take steps to kind of resolve the issue. So that was the code of conduct. We're going to move on to the Q&A section now, but my email address is on the slides. So if you do have any questions, please take note of this. It's also on the Peterborough City Council website. And if you have any questions about the UK Youth Parliament elections generally, then there's a lot of information and resources on the British Youth Council website, which you can see the link to on your screen. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Q&A section. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll also stop recording so we can take questions.